In the grim darkness of the Warhammer 40k universe, where unrelenting warfare and the struggle for survival define the galaxy, the bond between humanity and its warriors is often forged through legends. These are tales of unwavering courage, impossible odds, and the indomitable spirit of those who defy fate. Among these icons of resilience stands Commissar Sebastian Yarrick, a name whispered with awe across both human worlds and even among the savage greenskin hordes of the orcs. His story is one that transcends the brutal simplicity of war, reaching into the realm of myth and earning him a rare, paradoxical respect from his sworn enemies. To understand Yarrick's place in this vast and violent universe, we must first consider the landscape in which he rose to prominence. The galaxy is a battleground where the Imperium of Man, an empire teetering on the brink of collapse, fights an endless war for its very survival. Its foes are numerous and varied, ranging from ancient calculating xenos to demonic horrors of the warp. Among these adversaries, the orcs are a uniquely chaotic force, a race driven by unrestrained aggression, boundless ingenuity, and an inherent love for conflict. They are not merely enemies, they are a natural disaster with intent, a green tide that consumes entire star systems in their insatiable lust for battle. In this ceaseless war, commissars hold a pivotal role. As both moral guardians and ruthless enforcers of discipline, they embody the Imperium's demand for unwavering loyalty and sacrifice. Commissars inspire terror and reverence in equal measure, standing as figures of absolute authority, even amidst the chaos of battle. They are tasked with ensuring that the troops of the Astra Militarum, humanity's primary defense force, do not falter in the face of overwhelming odds. It is in this context that Yarrick emerges not as a mere enforcer of discipline, but as a beacon of hope and defiance. The world of Armageddon serves as the backdrop for Yarrick's transformation into legend. This industrial hellscape, vital to the Imperium's war effort, is a place where survival alone is a victory. When war came to Armageddon, it arrived in the form of a greenskin invasion so vast it blotted out the skies. This was no ordinary orc war. It was the work of Ghazkul Thraka, a war boss whose cunning and brutality rival the greatest strategists in the galaxy. To the people of Armageddon, this was not merely a war. It was the end of their world. Yarrick's rise to prominence during these dark days is a tale marked by resilience, sacrifice, and an unyielding will to protect humanity. Yet, his story is not merely one of defense or survival. It is one of mutual recognition between adversaries. Among the orcs, strength is the only currency that matters, and to earn their respect is no small feat. Yarrick achieved this through acts of sheer determination and defiance that left even his enemies in awe. His legend spread not only among the ranks of the Astra Militarum, but also through the orc hordes, a peculiar twist in a galaxy where such grudging respect is almost unheard of. But who is Sebastian Yarrick beyond the battlefield? What made him the man capable of inspiring such reverence in both allies and foes? How did his actions during the cataclysmic wars on Armageddon solidify his place in the annals of the Imperium and the chaotic minds of the orcs? These are questions that invite deeper exploration, revealing a character whose legend is built not only on his deeds, but on the enduring symbol he became for humanity's resilience against insurmountable odds. As we delve into this story, we will explore the key players who shaped Yarrick's journey, the circumstances that set the stage for his rise, and the moments that defined his legacy. This is a tale of courage and conviction, of a man who refused to break even when faced with the unrelenting tide of war. It is a story of how a commissar, through sheer will and defiance, became a figure of myth, not just for humanity, but for those who sought to destroy it. In the intricate tapestry of the galaxy's unending conflict, the figures who intersect with Sebastian Yarrick's story bring layers of complexity, power, and symbolic significance. Each player, whether ally or adversary, holds a critical role in defining the saga of Yarrick's rise to prominence and the unique bond of respect he fostered with the Orks. These individuals and factions not only shape the narrative, but also underscore the vast and dynamic struggles within the Warhammer 40k universe. At the forefront of this tale is Sebastian Yarrick himself, a commissar of the Astra Militarum whose reputation has transcended his station. The commissar represents unyielding authority, a paragon of loyalty to the Imperium, and the embodiment of humanity's defiance. Yarrick's steadfastness and tactical acumen made him a symbol of resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. Yet, his legend is not defined solely by his official role. His presence commands respect through his actions, his unshakable resolve, and the aura of inevitability he carries into battle. Standing opposite Yarrick is the towering figure of Gazshkul Mag Uruk Thraka, a war boss whose name sends shockwaves across the galaxy. Gazshkul is no ordinary Ork leader. He is a prophet of their brutal culture, driven by both raw power and an uncanny strategic brilliance. He represents the Ork Wag at its most destructive and unified, a phenomenon that turns the chaotic fervor of the Orks into a focused apocalyptic force. His role in Yarrick's story is pivotal, as the two become locked in a clash that transcends the typical dynamic of human versus xenos. Gazghkul is both nemesis and catalyst, a figure whose actions elevate Yarrick from a hero of the Imperium to a living legend. The Orks themselves are another indispensable element. This savage and anarchic species thrives on violence, viewing warfare as both a purpose and a joy. Unlike most foes of the Imperium, Orks are not motivated by ideology or conquest, but by an insatiable desire to fight and prove their strength. Their crude yet effective technology, combined with their unrelenting determination, makes them one of the most unpredictable and dangerous threats in the galaxy. They are not a mere backdrop to Yarrick's tale. Their collective identity plays a key role in shaping how he is perceived, even within their own brutal and chaotic ranks. Supporting Yarrick in his endeavors is the Astra Militarum, the backbone of the Imperium's defense. Often underestimated in the grander scope of galactic warfare, the Astra Militarum represents humanity's resilience through sheer numbers and determination. While their soldiers are ordinary humans, lacking the genetic enhancements of other Imperial forces, their resolve is bolstered by leaders like Yarrick who inspire loyalty and courage. The Astra Militarum's countless regiments, each hailing from unique and diverse worlds, highlight the sheer scale of humanity's struggle for survival. The Adeptus Mechanicus also features prominently, as their expertise in maintaining and deploying the Imperium's vast war machines is indispensable in battles of this magnitude. This enigmatic faction, devoted to the worship of technology, supplies the Astra Militarum with the tanks, artillery, and logistical support needed to hold the line against the Ork onslaught. Their involvement underscores the collaboration required within the Imperium's vast, labyrinthine structure to combat threats like Gazghkul's Wah. Beyond the immediate battlefield, the shadow of the Imperium itself looms large. This galaxy-spanning empire, ruled by the undying emperor of mankind, is a monolithic presence that defines the context of Yarrick's actions. It is both his ultimate cause and the source of the immense burden he bears. The Imperium's bureaucratic inefficiency, combined with its relentless demand for loyalty and sacrifice, provides a stark contrast to the individuality and determination that define Yarrick as a character. Finally, the civilians of Armageddon serve as a poignant reminder of what is at stake. These industrial workers, miners, and laborers represent the countless lives caught in the crossfire of galactic war. Their survival and resilience in the face of utter devastation provide the human element that anchors Yarrick's story. Their faith in him and their willingness to endure unimaginable hardships elevate his role from a mere military leader to a symbol of hope for all humanity. Together, these players form the intricate web of forces that surround and define Sebastian Yarrick's story. Each faction and individual contributes uniquely to the narrative, setting the stage for the events that would not only shape the fate of Armageddon, but also cement Yarrick's place in the annals of legend. Their roles, interwoven with tension and purpose, highlight the vast and multifaceted conflicts that define the Warhammer 40k universe. The story of Sebastian Yarrick's rise to prominence begins long before the battles that defined his legacy. It starts within the broader context of the Imperium's ceaseless struggle for survival in a galaxy fraught with war. The conditions that led to Yarrick's pivotal role were shaped by the nature of the Imperium itself, the specific challenges of the planet Armageddon, and the ever-present threat posed by the Orks. These elements converged in a way that placed Yarrick on a path toward becoming one of the most celebrated figures in the Astra Militarum. The Imperium of Man is a vast and rigid structure, where survival depends on the coordination of countless worlds, each contributing to the Emperor's grand design. Among these, the industrial worlds hold particular significance, serving as hubs of production for the weapons, vehicles, and supplies essential to the Imperium's endless wars. Armageddon, a planet of monumental importance, was one such world. Its factories churned out munitions, its mines extracted vital resources, and its forges produced the tools of war. Yet its strategic value also made it a target, drawing the attention of enemies eager to cripple the Imperium's war machine. Long before the infamous conflict that would define Yarrick's career, Armageddon had already endured its share of hardships. Environmental degradation from centuries of industrial exploitation had turned the planet into a harsh and inhospitable landscape. Its population, composed of laborers and overseers, lived under constant pressure to meet the Imperium's demands. This environment bred a culture of resilience and endurance, but also left the planet vulnerable. The planet's defenses, while substantial, were stretched thin by the sheer magnitude of its responsibilities. These weaknesses did not go unnoticed by the Orks, whose war bands roamed the galaxy in search of plunder and glory. The Orks are drawn to conflict like moths to flame, and a planet like Armageddon, teeming with resources and bristling with defenders, presented an irresistible challenge. Their attacks, though sporadic at first, became increasingly coordinated, hinting at the presence of a greater force behind them. These early incursions, while manageable, served as a grim warning of what was to come. The Imperium, ever burdened by its many fronts, struggled to allocate sufficient resources to address the growing threat. This set the stage for the larger conflict that would catapult Yarrick into the spotlight. Sebastian Yarrick's appointment to Armageddon was not an accident. The commissariat, responsible for selecting and assigning commissars, is known for its scrutiny and precision in deploying its officers. Yarrick's track record, characterized by his unshakable loyalty and effective leadership, made him a prime candidate for a posting on such a critical world. His earlier assignments had demonstrated his ability to inspire troops and maintain order under the direst circumstances. His no-nonsense approach, combined with an acute understanding of the psychological aspects of warfare, positioned him as an ideal choice to bolster the morale and discipline of Armageddon's defenders. The decision to assign Yarrick to Armageddon also reflected the commissariat's broader strategy of placing its most capable officers in regions of high strategic importance. Armageddon's industrial output was too valuable to risk losing, and the rising Ork threat required a leader who could rally the planet's defenders and maintain order in the face of chaos. Yarrick's arrival was thus a calculated move, one that underscored the seriousness of the situation and the Imperium's determination to protect the planet at all costs. As Yarrick assumed his position, he found himself in a world already on the brink. The local population, while hardened by years of toil, harbored a simmering sense of unease. Rumors of Ork incursions circulated among the workers, stoking fear and uncertainty. The planetary defense forces, though experienced, were overextended and under constant strain. Yarrick's task was not merely to enforce discipline, but to instill a sense of purpose and unity among those who would soon face the full fury of the orcs. In the years leading up to the cataclysmic invasion, Yarrick worked tirelessly to prepare Armageddon for what was coming. His efforts included not only maintaining order, but also forging connections with the planet's military leaders, industrial overseers, and even its civilian population. He understood that the defense of Armageddon would require a collective effort, one that transcended the traditional boundaries of command. These early steps, while less dramatic than the battles that would follow, laid the foundation for the extraordinary events that would cement his legacy. The build-up to the eventual confrontation with the orcs was marked by a growing sense of inevitability. Reports of larger and more organized orc forces began to trickle in, each one painting a grim picture of what lay ahead. The defenders of Armageddon, under Yarrick's guidance, braced themselves for the storm. Little did they know that the coming conflict would not only test their resolve, but also transform their leader into a figure of legend. The stage was set, the players in place, and the galaxy held its breath as the winds of war began to howl. Sebastian Yarrick's rise through the ranks of the commissariat was marked by a series of postings that tested his resolve and honed his abilities to command and inspire. Before arriving on Armageddon, Yarrick's career was defined by his unflinching adherence to the principles of duty and discipline, which earned him both the respect of his superiors and the fear of those under his watch. His service often placed him in the most challenging environments, where his ability to stabilize wavering troops and turn despair into determination became his hallmark. These experiences prepared him for the monumental task that awaited him on Armageddon. As the orc threat grew and the invasions of Armageddon escalated into full-scale war, Yarrick found himself at the center of the conflict. The Wah, unleashed by Ghazghkull Thraka, was unlike anything seen before on the planet, a force of unrelenting ferocity and cunning. The early stages of the war were defined by brutal engagements, where the defenders of Armageddon were pushed to their limits. The orcs overwhelmed planetary defenses with their sheer numbers and chaotic tactics, forcing Yarrick and the military leaders to adapt rapidly. Yarrick's leadership during this period was instrumental in holding key positions that would have otherwise fallen to the invaders. As the war progressed, Yarrick's personal involvement in frontline battles became a rallying point for the defenders. His presence inspired soldiers to stand firm against the orc onslaught, even when victory seemed impossible. Yarrick did not lead from the safety of command posts. He was often seen in the thick of the fighting, wielding his chainsword and delivering decisive orders amidst the chaos. This combination of bravery and tactical acumen turned him into a symbol of hope for the people of Armageddon. Stories of his feats began to spread, solidifying his reputation among the soldiers and civilians alike. Despite these early successes, the situation grew increasingly dire. Ghazghkull's forces continued to pour onto the planet, and the defenders were pushed to the brink. The orc war boss's strategy was as ruthless as it was effective, targeting critical infrastructure and isolating key defensive positions. Yarrick's ability to anticipate and counter these moves often made the difference between survival and annihilation for entire sectors of the planet. However, the relentless pressure began to take its toll, and the defenders found themselves on the defensive more often than not. In one of the most dramatic episodes of the conflict, Yarrick's forces were ambushed and overwhelmed during an attempted counterattack. Cut off from reinforcements and surrounded by orcs, Yarrick and his men fought desperately to hold their ground. The battle was brutal, with casualties mounting on both sides. When it became clear that escape was impossible, Yarrick made the decision to hold the line to the last, sacrificing any chance of retreat to buy time for nearby forces to regroup. This stand would lead to Yarrick's capture by the orcs, an event that sent shockwaves through the defenders of Armageddon. The commissar was taken prisoner and brought before Ghazghkull himself, a moment that underscored the deep respect the war boss held for his human adversary. For the orcs, capturing a figure like Yarrick was a victory that resonated far beyond the battlefield. Yarrick was subjected to brutal interrogations and torture as the orcs sought to break him in both body and spirit. Yet even in captivity, Yarrick's resolve did not waver. The ordeal of imprisonment became a defining chapter in Yarrick's story. Though he was beaten and mocked by his captors, he refused to show weakness. The orcs, for all their savagery, were creatures that revered strength, and Yarrick's unyielding defiance began to earn their respect. He remained defiant in the face of their brutality, turning even the darkest moments of his captivity into acts of resistance. Yarrick's ability to endure and persevere under such circumstances would later become a testament to his unbreakable spirit. Throughout this time, rumors of Yarrick's fate spread among the defenders of Armageddon, fueling both despair and determination. His capture was seen as a devastating blow, yet his legend only grew as tales of his unyielding resistance began to circulate. Yarrick's absence left a void in the morale of the defenders, but his example continued to inspire those who fought on in his name. Yarrick's time in captivity also provided him with unique insights into the orcs and their culture. Though he remained their prisoner, he observed their behavior, their hierarchy, and their peculiar sense of honor. This knowledge, gained under the most harrowing circumstances, would later prove invaluable in understanding the mindset of his enemy. It was during this period that the foundations of the strange and paradoxical respect between Yarrick and the orcs began to take shape. This chapter of the war marked a turning point not only for Yarrick, but also for the conflict as a whole. His capture and resilience highlighted the stakes of the battle for Armageddon and the lengths to which both sides were willing to go. It set the stage for the events that would follow as Yarrick's legend continued to grow and his impact on the war became undeniable. The war was far from over, and Yarrick's role in its outcome had yet to fully unfold. Sebastian Yarrick's capture and subsequent imprisonment by the orcs was a turning point not only in his personal story, but in the conflict as a whole. Yet, the most extraordinary aspect of his ordeal came not during his torture or resistance, but in the unprecedented decision made by his captors to release him. This act, seemingly contradictory to the orcs' brutal nature, was rooted in their unique culture and the respect they had developed for the man they considered their equal, if not their superior, in the art of war. The orcs are a species defined by their reverence for strength and the thrill of combat. To them, a worthy enemy is as essential to their identity as victory itself. Their entire existence revolves around the chaos and joy of battle, and they see those who can match them in strength and cunning as individuals to be respected, even admired. It was within this framework that Yarrick's release became not just a possibility, but a necessity. His resilience during captivity, coupled with his reputation as a warrior who had defied them time and again, elevated him to the status of a worthy foe. This decision was heavily influenced by Ghazghkull Thraka, the war boss, whose cunning and ambition had driven the Waaagh to its unprecedented scale. Ghazghkull was not an ordinary leader among the orcs. His strategic mind and grand vision allowed him to view the galaxy's conflicts as more than just a series of battles. For Ghazghkull, the idea of war extended beyond mere conquest. It was a theater in which legends were forged. Yarrick, through his actions on Armageddon and his defiance in captivity, had become a central figure in this narrative, a human who could challenge and test the limits of Ghazghkull's might. The moment of Yarrick's release was as surreal as it was defining. After enduring weeks of brutal treatment, Yarrick was summoned before Ghazghkull in what could only be described as a meeting of titans. The war boss, towering over the battered commissar, regarded him with a mixture of amusement and respect. Yarrick, despite his physical condition, stood firm, refusing to show any sign of submission. It was this unwavering defiance that cemented Ghazghkull's decision. The orc leader recognized in Yarrick not just an opponent, but a figure who elevated the stakes of their conflict. Killing him would not serve the orcs' purpose. It would rob them of the challenge they craved. The release itself was carried out in a manner that only the orcs could conceive. Yarrick was unceremoniously dragged to the edge of their encampment, where he was left, beaten but alive, as a statement to both his allies and enemies. To the defenders of Armageddon, it was a sign that their leader had survived against all odds. To the orcs, it was a declaration of their own strength, a demonstration that they did not fear sparing such a formidable adversary. Gazkul's reasoning was simple yet profound. He believed that the true glory of war lay not in annihilating one's enemies, but in finding and fighting those who could match one's might. For the orcs, the thrill of battle was intertwined with the quality of their opponents. Yarrick, with his unmatched tenacity and tactical brilliance, was a rarity in the galaxy, a foe who could inspire their best efforts and make their victories truly meaningful. In Gazkul's eyes, releasing Yarrick was not an act of mercy, but one of self-interest. Without him, the orcs feared that their wars would lose their luster, reduced to mindless slaughter without the challenge they so deeply craved. For Yarrick, the experience was transformative. While he remained a staunch enemy of the orcs, his release provided a rare glimpse into their culture, one that few outside their race ever truly understood. He realized that their decision was not born of pity or weakness, but of a twisted form of honor. It was a moment that redefined the dynamic between him and his adversaries, turning their conflict into something far more personal and profound. Upon returning to the Imperium, Yarrick's survival and the circumstances of his release became the stuff of legend. Among his comrades, it was seen as a testament to his indomitable will and the fear he instilled in the enemy. Among the orcs, his name became synonymous with strength and defiance, a human whose deeds had earned him a place in their chaotic narratives. This singular event, the release of a captive commissar by one of the most feared war bosses in the galaxy, solidified Yarrick's status as a figure of mythic proportions, both to his allies and his foes. The repercussions of this decision rippled far beyond the immediate conflict. It established a precedent in the relationship between Yarrick and the orcs, particularly Gazkul, setting the stage for future confrontations that would continue to shape the fate of Armageddon and the galaxy itself. It was a moment that encapsulated the paradox of the orcs' nature, a race driven by destruction yet bound by their own sense of honor, one that saw them release the very enemy they had sought to defeat. Yarrick's release was not just a turning point in his story, but a defining moment in the ongoing struggle between humanity and its most unpredictable foes. The release of Sebastian Yarrick by the orcs reverberated through the galaxy in ways that few events in the history of the Imperium could. It was not just the act of survival, but the circumstances of his release that became a point of fascination, analysis, and inspiration for countless individuals and factions. This singular event challenged existing perceptions of the orcs, revealed deeper layers of complexity within their culture, and reinforced Yarrick's status as a figure of almost mythical significance. For the Imperium, the return of Yarrick alive from the heart of an orc encampment was nothing short of miraculous. Commissars are trained to expect death on the battlefield, often at their own hands, to avoid capture. That Yarrick not only endured his ordeal, but was deliberately spared by the enemy was unprecedented. This act raised questions about the very nature of the orcs, forcing scholars, tacticians, and theologians to reconsider their understanding of this seemingly simple and savage species. Traditionally, orcs were seen as creatures of brute force and unrelenting violence, incapable of nuance or strategic thought beyond the immediate thrill of battle. Yarrick's release suggested otherwise. It revealed a depth to their culture and a sense of honor that, while alien to human sensibilities, was undeniable. The notion that orcs could respect a human enough to deliberately spare him ran counter to everything the Imperium had believed about them. This realization did not make the orcs any less dangerous, but added a layer of unpredictability to their already chaotic nature. It became clear that their actions could not always be reduced to mindless savagery. There were instances where their decisions were driven by a warped sense of logic and admiration for strength. This new understanding had a profound impact on Imperial strategy. Military commanders began to take into account the psychological and cultural aspects of the orcs, recognizing that their motivations went beyond simple conquest. Yarrick's case demonstrated that the orcs could be influenced, even if only in limited and unpredictable ways, by displays of power and defiance. This insight opened the door for new approaches to combating their wows, emphasizing the importance of morale and symbolism in addition to raw firepower. On a more personal level, Yarrick's survival and the respect shown to him by the orcs further solidified his reputation as a leader of unparalleled resilience. His ability to endure torture, maintain his dignity, and ultimately walk away from his captors alive became a defining feature of his legacy. To his allies, it was proof of his unbreakable will and his unique ability to inspire both fear and respect in friend and foe alike. Yarrick was no longer just a commissar. He was a living symbol of the Imperium's capacity to withstand even the most harrowing challenges. For the people of Armageddon and the soldiers of the Astra Militarum, Yarrick's return was a source of immense hope and morale. It showed them that their struggle against the orcs was not futile, and that even in the darkest moments, victory, or at least survival, was possible. Yarrick's presence became a rallying point for the defenders of Armageddon, and his legend only grew with each retelling of his ordeal. His survival was not just a personal triumph, but a collective one, a beacon of light in a galaxy overshadowed by despair. At the same time, Yarrick's story highlighted the paradoxical nature of the orcs. They were both the most straightforward and the most enigmatic of the Imperium's foes. On one hand, they were driven by a primal urge for violence and chaos. On the other, they were capable of actions that defied expectation, such as sparing an enemy they deemed worthy. This complexity made them all the more dangerous, as their behavior could shift unpredictably based on factors that humans struggle to understand. Yarrick's release was a stark reminder that the orcs, for all their brutishness, were not to be underestimated. The broader implications of this event extended beyond the immediate conflict on Armageddon. The story of Yarrick's capture and release spread across the Imperium, becoming a part of its vast oral and written tradition. It was retold in countless variations, each emphasizing different aspects of the tale. Yarrick's courage, the orcs' respect for him, and the bizarre nature of their decision to let him go. These stories served to inspire not only the soldiers of the Astra Militarum, but also the countless billions of civilians who relied on the Imperium's forces for protection. For Yarrick himself, the experience was both a personal trial and a moment of profound revelation. He emerged from his captivity with a deeper understanding of the orcs, an insight that would prove invaluable in the battles to come. He had seen firsthand their peculiar blend of savagery and respect, their chaotic nature tempered by a strange form of honor. This knowledge did not make him any less committed to defeating them, but it did give him an edge in anticipating their actions and countering their strategies. The decision of the orcs to release Yarrick remains one of the most unusual and debated moments in the history of the Imperium's wars. It challenged preconceptions, reshaped strategies, and added new dimensions to the ongoing struggle between humanity and its most unpredictable adversaries. Above all, it underscored the unique qualities of Sebastian Yarrick, his strength, his resilience, and his ability to command respect even from those who sought to destroy him. It is these qualities that have ensured his place in the annals of history, not just as a hero of the Imperium, but as a figure whose story transcends the boundaries of human and alien, of enemy and ally, and of war and legend. One of the most fascinating aspects of the relationship between Sebastian Yarrick and the orcs lies in the symbolic power he holds within their culture. Among fans of Warhammer 40k, the peculiar dynamic between Yarrick and his green-skinned adversaries has sparked endless discussions, memes, and theories, as it represents an unparalleled intersection of humanity's resilience and the orcs' respect for strength. It is this intersection that has turned Yarrick into a figure of intrigue and reverence, not only in-universe, but also within the fan community. Orcs are a species governed by a unique and often paradoxical sense of logic. They value strength above all else, viewing combat not as a means to an end, but as an end in itself. In their eyes, the worth of an individual is measured by their ability to fight, survive, and inspire fear or awe. This perspective is why Yarrick occupies such a unique place in their collective psyche. For the Orcs, Yarrick isn't just an enemy. He is a symbol of the kind of fight they crave. His defiance in battle and unyielding determination resonate deeply with their worldview, making him a larger-than-life figure even to those who seek his defeat. One of the most discussed elements of this dynamic is the infamous Baal Eye that Yarrick wears. After losing his eye in battle, he replaced it with a bionic implant equipped with a laser weapon, a piece of technology that has become emblematic of his character. The Orcs, being naturally prone to embellishing stories, have elevated the Baal Eye to mythical status. In their retellings, the eye is said to shoot beams capable of incinerating entire Orc warbands, a claim that is far from true but perfectly aligned with their penchant for exaggeration. This myth has led to countless Orc warriors seeking to face Yarrick, driven by the desire to test themselves against the Commissar, whose very gaze is said to bring death. Another point of intrigue is Yarrick's use of an Orc power claw, a weapon he claimed from a defeated war boss and adapted for his own use. This act, deeply symbolic in nature, has fueled the Orcs' respect for him. To them, wielding one of their iconic weapons is not an insult, but a mark of Yarrick's worthiness as an adversary. In their culture, strength is proven by taking trophies from fallen foes, and by using the claw, Yarrick demonstrates his ability to not only defeat them, but also to turn their own tools against them. This has led to a strange reverence for him as a warrior who understands and embodies their values, even as he fights to destroy them. Fan discussions often focus on the almost personal relationship between Yarrick and Gazkul Thraka, the Orc war boss who sees him as a kindred spirit in some twisted way. While the two are mortal enemies, there is an undeniable mutual recognition between them that adds depth to their rivalry. Gazkul's respect for Yarrick is not based on human notions of honor, but on the Orc belief that a truly great enemy enhances the glory of one's victories. Fans frequently debate whether this dynamic makes Yarrick unique among Imperial heroes, as no other figure has been so deliberately spared by an enemy of such magnitude. Within the Warhammer 40k community, Yarrick's story is often discussed as an example of how the setting blends grimdark elements with moments of dark humor and irony. The idea that a commissar, a figure of absolute discipline and order, could become a cultural icon among a race as chaotic as the Orcs is both absurd and fitting. It highlights the strange symbiosis between the Imperium and its enemies, where even the most brutal conflicts give rise to unexpected bonds and shared narratives. Another fascinating discussion point is how Yarrick has become a living legend not only among the Orcs, but also among humanity. His reputation as a man who commands respect from even the most savage of foes elevates him beyond the status of a mere military leader. To the citizens of the Imperium, he represents an ideal of resilience and determination, while to the Orcs, he is proof that strength knows no boundaries of race or allegiance. This duality has made him a beloved figure in the lore, as fans explore the ways in which his story transcends the usual dichotomies of hero and villain. The Orcs' respect for Yarrick also serves as a lens through which fans examine their own understanding of the species. Far from being mere comic relief, the Orcs are revealed to possess a complex culture that values traits often dismissed as purely human, such as loyalty, bravery, and respect for worthy foes. This challenges traditional narratives within the setting and invites deeper exploration of what it means to be an Orc. Yarrick's role in their mythology becomes a key point in these discussions, as it shows that even in the most brutal corners of the galaxy, there is room for recognition and admiration across the lines of battle. Ultimately, the unique aspects of Yarrick's story lie not only in his actions, but in how they are perceived and remembered by those around him. His ability to inspire awe in both allies and enemies speaks to his extraordinary qualities as a leader and a warrior. Among fans, this dynamic has solidified his place as one of the most compelling characters in the Warhammer 40k universe, a figure whose legacy continues to spark debate, admiration, and endless storytelling. Sebastian Yarrick's legacy is intricately tied to the remarkable personalities who shaped his story, each adding depth and nuance to the unfolding saga. These figures, whether allies, enemies, or reluctant observers, played critical roles in defining not only Yarrick's character, but also the broader dynamics of the conflict surrounding him. Understanding these individuals requires examining their traits, goals, and the complex interplay of strengths and flaws that made their actions so consequential. Central to this narrative, of course, is Sebastian Yarrick himself. While often lauded for his unwavering determination and inspiring leadership, Yarrick was not without his flaws. His obsessive commitment to duty and his relentless pursuit of victory often came at great personal and professional cost. Yarrick's single-minded focus on defeating the Orks made him an uncompromising leader, one who sometimes alienated allies and placed extreme burdens on his subordinates. His harsh methods, though effective, occasionally bordered on ruthless, leading some to question whether his determination outweighed his humanity. These traits, while instrumental in forging his reputation, also painted him as a figure of both awe and fear. Yarrick's resilience and ability to endure unimaginable hardships were unmatched, but they came with a price. The psychological toll of his experiences, particularly his capture and torture, left scars that never fully healed. While he rarely showed weakness, those closest to him recognized the strain he carried. His stoic exterior masked an inner turmoil fueled by the knowledge that his survival often hinged on sacrifices made by those under his command. This inner conflict added complexity to his character, making him both a hero to be admired and a cautionary figure whose victories were often Pyrrhic. Opposing Yarrick was Gazhkul Thraka, a figure whose cunning and ambition reshaped the Orc race's approach to war. Gazhkul was a paradox, combining the brutal savagery of his kind with a level of strategic insight rarely seen among the greenskins. His charisma and ability to unite disparate Orc warbands into a cohesive force made him a uniquely formidable foe. While his strength and leadership were undeniable, Gazhkul's overconfidence sometimes led to miscalculations. His belief in the inevitability of Orc supremacy occasionally blinded him to the resilience and ingenuity of his enemies, including Yarrick. Yet it was precisely this rivalry that elevated both figures, as their clashes became legendary in the annals of the galaxy. Among Yarrick's allies, General Kurov stands out as a figure of pragmatic loyalty. Kurov's ability to manage logistics and coordinate the massive forces under his command complemented Yarrick's more frontline-focused leadership style. Kurov's strengths lay in his calm, calculated approach to warfare, which often provided a counterbalance to Yarrick's intensity. However, Kurov sometimes struggled to fully embrace Yarrick's unorthodox methods, creating occasional friction between the two leaders. While Kurov admired Yarrick's courage, he often found himself questioning the long-term sustainability of the Commissar's relentless tactics. On the other side of the spectrum was Inquisitor Havelock, whose involvement in the Armageddon conflict added a layer of intrigue and tension. Havelock's role was not as a direct combatant, but as a figure tasked with ensuring the Imperium's survival through any means necessary. His cold pragmatism and willingness to make morally dubious decisions often clashed with Yarrick's more idealistic, albeit stern, approach. Havelock viewed Yarrick as both an asset and a liability, recognizing his value as a symbol of hope while fearing the potential consequences of his growing legend. This cautious respect underscored the uneasy alliance between the two, highlighting the competing priorities within the Imperium itself. Among the Orcs, Makari the Groat, Gazhkul's trusted banner-bearer, offered an unusual perspective. While diminutive and often overlooked by other races, Makari's unwavering loyalty to his war boss and his surprising survival skills made him a figure of interest. He embodied the orc ideal of sticking close to power and seizing opportunities where possible. While Makari was not a direct combatant, his role in bolstering Gazkul's image and amplifying his charisma was significant. In many ways, Makari's presence highlighted the orcs' chaotic but functional social structure where even the smallest figure could wield influence through proximity to power. The civilians of Armageddon, though not typically named as individuals, were collectively a crucial part of Yarrick's story. Their resilience and determination in the face of unimaginable destruction reflected the strength of the human spirit that Yarrick sought to embody. However, their suffering was also a stark reminder of the cost of his victories. Yarrick's inability to protect everyone weighed heavily on him, even as he inspired the survivors to endure. This duality, his role as both savior and witness to immense loss, further complicated his legacy. Yarrick's story also intersected with figures from the Adeptus Mechanicus, who provided the technological support necessary to sustain the war effort. Tech priests like Dominus Klytos played a vital role in maintaining the machinery of war, from tanks to Yarrick's own Baal. These individuals, while indispensable, often viewed the conflict through a lens of cold efficiency, focusing on the preservation of technology over human lives. This pragmatic outlook sometimes put them at odds with Yarrick's more human-centered priorities, creating tension between the need for resources and the immediate demands of battle. Ultimately, the individuals connected to Yarrick's story each brought unique qualities that enriched the broader narrative. Their strengths, weaknesses, and conflicting goals highlighted the complexity of the galaxy and the challenges faced by those who sought to protect it. Yarrick's flaws and struggles, far from diminishing his legacy, made him a more relatable and enduring figure. His interactions with allies and enemies alike painted a picture of a man who, while extraordinary, was also deeply human, a leader whose legend was forged not just in victory, but in the trials and imperfections that defined him. Sebastian Yarrick's legacy is surrounded by a host of unanswered questions and theories that continue to intrigue scholars, soldiers, and fans alike. The events of his life, the peculiar dynamics with the orcs, and the unique role he plays in the galaxy leave room for speculation, interpretation, and even mystery. These unresolved threads fuel discussions both within the Warhammer 40k universe and among its community, as Yarrick's story challenges conventional narratives and introduces complex ideas about warfare, leadership, and the orc psyche. One of the most debated questions is why Gazkul Thraka chose to release Yarrick alive rather than eliminating him. While the orcs' cultural respect for strength provides a general explanation, the deeper motivations behind this act remain elusive. Some argue that Gazkul saw Yarrick not just as a worthy adversary, but as a symbol of the kind of war he wanted to wage, a grand, legendary conflict that would elevate his own status within the orc mythos. Others speculate that there was a strategic element to the decision, as sparing Yarrick might have been a way to sow chaos and division among the Imperium's forces by creating an idol whose every action would be scrutinized. Was it purely a decision rooted in orc philosophy, or was there a deeper, more calculated plan at work? Another point of contention revolves around the Baal Eye, Yarrick's iconic bionic implant. While its functionality as a weapon is well documented, its symbolic significance and the myths surrounding it raise questions about how much of Yarrick's legend is fact and how much is exaggerated by the Imperium and the orcs alike. The orcs' belief that the Eye is capable of wiping out entire warbands is clearly an embellishment, but it speaks to their tendency to mythologize their greatest foes. This has led to debates about the role of propaganda in Yarrick's story. To what extent has the Imperium encouraged such tales to bolster morale and inspire loyalty, and how much of it reflects Yarrick's own willingness to lean into his larger-than-life image? The question of Yarrick's psychological state also lingers as an area of intrigue. His unyielding determination and ability to endure extreme hardships are celebrated, but they also suggest a level of detachment from ordinary human concerns. Fans often discuss whether his experiences, particularly his captivity and torture, pushed him into a state of emotional numbness or even obsession. Did Yarrick's drive to defeat the Orks evolve into something more personal, a vendetta that went beyond his duty to the Imperium? Or did he consciously suppress his humanity to embody the unshakable ideal that his people needed? This duality makes him a compelling figure, but it also leaves room for speculation about the cost of his sacrifices. The enigmatic relationship between Yarrick and the Orks, particularly Ghazghkull, is another focal point of debate. The apparent mutual respect between these two adversaries challenges the simplistic view of the Orks as mindless savages. Some fans theorize that this respect runs deeper than mere recognition of strength, suggesting that Ghazghkull might have seen Yarrick as a reflection of himself, a relentless and uncompromising force of nature. Others argue that Yarrick's role in Ork culture may have extended beyond combat, serving as a figure of inspiration for their wives, even if unintentionally. The idea that an Imperial hero could influence the morale and culture of his enemies opens up fascinating possibilities about the interconnectedness of adversaries in the Warhammer universe. One of the most intriguing mysteries is what Yarrick's story reveals about the Orks themselves. While they are typically portrayed as brutish and anarchic, their actions toward Yarrick suggest a deeper complexity. The decision to release him alive, their reverence for his strength, and their storytelling traditions all hint at a culture that, while alien, has its own form of honor and values. This has led to questions about how much the Imperium truly understands its enemies, and whether their strategies for dealing with the Orks are based on outdated or incomplete knowledge. Could Yarrick's experiences offer a glimpse into an alternative approach to engaging with the Orks, one that leverages their respect for strength and their chaotic tendencies? A more speculative question arises from the ambiguity surrounding Yarrick's final fate. While many accounts suggest he eventually retired or died, there are persistent rumors and theories that he remains active in some capacity, either as a hidden advisor or a shadowy figure operating behind the scenes. This has led to fan discussions about the possibility of Yarrick's continued involvement in the Imperium's wars, perhaps in ways that are deliberately obscured to maintain his mythic status. Could he have chosen to step away from public view to preserve the legend of the hero of Armageddon, ensuring that his name continues to inspire long after his direct involvement has ended? The nature of Yarrick's relationship with the Adeptus Mechanicus also raises questions. His reliance on advanced technology, such as the Bale Eye and the Power Claw, suggests a level of collaboration with the Mechanicus that may have extended beyond what was officially recorded. Some fans theorize that the Tech Priests saw Yarrick as a unique opportunity to study the Orks indirectly, using his first-hand experiences to better understand their biology, psychology, and culture. This raises the possibility that Yarrick's legacy includes not just his battlefield exploits, but also contributions to the Imperium's knowledge base, even if these contributions remain classified or unacknowledged. Finally, the broader implications of Yarrick's story continue to spark debate about the nature of heroism in the Warhammer 40k universe. Is Yarrick's legacy a testament to the power of individual will and determination, or is it a carefully constructed narrative designed to serve the Imperium's needs? The balance between his genuine achievements and the mythos that surrounds him remains a subject of ongoing fascination. This ambiguity allows his story to resonate on multiple levels as both an inspiring tale of resilience and a commentary on the ways in which legends are shaped and sustained in a galaxy defined by endless war. The legacy of Sebastian Yarrick's unique relationship with the Orks carries implications that extend far beyond the immediate events of his life. His story continues to ripple through the galaxy, shaping perceptions, strategies, and the ongoing conflict between humanity and the Greenskins. While his exploits have already left a profound mark on the Imperium, the long-term consequences of his actions and the respect he garnered from the Orks raise questions about what lies ahead. For the Orks, Yarrick's survival and the cultural status he has attained within their collective psyche create a unique dynamic. Typically, the Orks thrive on an endless cycle of combat and destruction, with no particular attachment to their enemies beyond the excitement of battle. Yarrick, however, has become an exception to this rule. His legend within Ork culture is both a strength and a potential vulnerability. On the one hand, he represents an ideal adversary who pushes them to greater feats of violence and ingenuity. On the other hand, their focus on Yarrick could narrow their perspective, potentially leaving them less prepared for other threats or conflicts. If future Wa prioritize pursuing Yarrick rather than addressing broader objectives, this obsession could be exploited by the Imperium or other factions. For Yarrick, the question of revenge looms large. His capture and torture by the Orks left physical and psychological scars that, while not outwardly acknowledged, undoubtedly weigh heavily on him. While his survival and eventual release demonstrated his resilience, the experience may have planted the seeds of a deeper, more personal motivation. Should Yarrick harbor a desire for vengeance, it could drive him to pursue more aggressive campaigns against the Orks, potentially escalating the conflict on an unprecedented scale. Such actions could bring short-term victories, but at the risk of overextending Imperial forces or provoking even larger wars in retaliation. The respect the Orks hold for Yarrick also raises the possibility of future confrontations of unparalleled intensity. The Greenskins thrive on the challenge of battling worthy foes, and Yarrick's continued existence ensures that he remains a focal point for their ambitions. This dynamic sets the stage for another large-scale war, one that could rival or even surpass the conflicts on Armageddon. The prospect of such a battle would be both a boon and a curse for the Imperium, providing an opportunity to deal a decisive blow to the Orks while also exposing humanity to immense risk and loss. From a broader perspective, Yarrick's story highlights the unpredictability of the Orks as a species. Their decision to spare him, driven by a combination of respect and strategic calculation, challenges the conventional wisdom of treating them as purely chaotic forces of destruction. This newfound understanding has the potential to influence Imperial strategy, shifting the focus from outright annihilation to exploiting their cultural tendencies. If the Imperium can leverage the Orks' respect for strength and their mythologizing tendencies, it may find new ways to contain their threat. However, this approach also carries dangers, as it risks underestimating the Orks' adaptability and the scale of their ambition. Yarrick's legend also has implications for the morale and unity of the Imperium. His survival and the respect he commands from even his most savage enemies serve as a symbol of humanity's resilience. This symbolism strengthens the Imperium's resolve, inspiring countless soldiers and citizens to endure in the face of overwhelming odds. However, the elevation of Yarrick to near-mythic status also creates challenges. Should he falter or fail in a future conflict, the impact on morale could be devastating. The weight of expectation placed upon him is immense, and any perceived weakness could undermine the very legend that has become a cornerstone of Imperial propaganda. There is also the question of whether Yarrick's fame and the respect he garners from the Orks will influence other factions. His story is well known not only within the Imperium and among the Orks, but also across the galaxy. Other xenos races or even rogue elements within the Imperium may seek to exploit this dynamic, either by targeting Yarrick directly or by attempting to manipulate the Orks' obsession with him. This could lead to unexpected alliances or betrayals, further complicating the already chaotic tapestry of galactic warfare. The possibility of Yarrick's eventual retirement or death adds another layer of uncertainty. Should he choose to step away from the battlefield, the Orks' reaction could be unpredictable. While they may shift their focus to new challenges, there is also the risk that Yarrick's absence could leave a void that fuels even greater aggression. Alternatively, if Yarrick were to fall in battle, the manner of his death would likely become a focal point for both Imperial and Orc narratives. A heroic sacrifice could cement his legacy as a symbol of resistance, while a less glorious end might destabilize the fragile morale of the Imperium's defenders. Finally, Yarrick's story underscores the cyclical nature of war in the Warhammer universe. While his actions and legacy have created temporary shifts in the balance of power, the broader conflict between humanity and the Orcs remains unresolved. His life serves as a reminder that even the most extraordinary individuals can only hold back the tide for so long. In the end, the galaxy's fate will be determined not by singular heroes, but by the relentless forces of history, culture, and survival that drive its inhabitants. The long-term consequences of Yarrick's actions are thus a mixture of hope and uncertainty. His legacy inspires resilience and ingenuity, yet it also highlights the precariousness of humanity's position in the galaxy. Whether his continued involvement leads to greater triumphs or new challenges, one thing is certain: the name Sebastian Yarrick will remain etched in the annals of galactic history, a testament to the enduring struggle between strength, will, and the chaos of endless war.